45 days. That is how long it took Congress to pass the Patriot Act after September 11th. A 131-page law introduced and signed in 3 days with one dissenting vote in the entire Senate. No extended debate. No public hearings. The bill moved because the country was grieving, and grief is not a condition that asks for patience. The argument was not complicated. People had died. More people could die. There was a set of tools, surveillance powers, expanded wiretaps, searches without notification that could prevent that. The people offering these tools believed in them. The people accepting them believed in them too. And questioning whether the grief was being used to build something that would outlast it, that was a conversation for later. Later took about 12 years. In 2013, Edward Snowden confirmed that the NSA had been collecting the phone records of millions of Americans with no suspicion of wrongdoing required. The Brennan Center has since documented zero evidence that suspicionless surveillance made anyone safer. The machine is still running. I want to talk about a 2020 anime that built the same machine from scratch, named it the Kura, and then asked the question the Patriot Act never did: what does it cost the people inside it? This is ID invaded. And the answer is worse than you would expect, because the cost is not suffering, it is meaning. The system works by making itself the only thing worth living for. Akihito Narihisago was a homicide detective. His daughter, Muku, was 14 years old when a serial killer named Katsuyama beat her to death. His wife could not carry the grief. She died by suicide not long after. Narihisago tracked Katsuyama down and shot him before the police could get there. He went to prison. 2 years later, the Kura offered him a job. The Kura is a secret government organization that catches serial killers using a machine called the Mizuhanome. It works like this: killers leave traces of their psychological state at crime scenes, cognition particles, physical residue of a drive to kill. Analysts collect those particles and feed them into the machine, which constructs a virtual world built from the killer's unconscious. Then they send someone in to investigate it. The catch is that only people who have killed someone can enter. The machine requires a drive to kill to function. So the Kura recruits its operatives from prison. Narihisago said yes, he was in a cell. His daughter was dead. His wife was dead. The man who killed Muku was already gone. There was nothing left that needed him except this: a machine that turned his specific damage into a professional qualification. Inside the wells, he goes by Sakaido. He forgets who he is every time he enters. The machine wipes his identity and replaces it with a mission: solve the mystery of the dead girl at the center of the well. She is called Kairu. She is always already dead when he arrives, and he knows, underneath the amnesia, that her face is the same as Muku's. Momoki, his old partner, now the director of wellside operations, tells him to keep his distance from the wells, to remember that Kairu is not Muku. Narihisago says he knows. He keeps diving. Here is what the wells are actually reading. Fukuda's well, the first case, is a suburb broken into hundreds of floating pieces, each fragment drifting in a white void. People inside it are broken too, limbs and faces replaced by holes. Fukuda saw himself as shattered, and his psyche built an architecture of that feeling. Fuyukawa's well is a stone tower surrounded by an endless waterfall, with a hidden sniper methodically killing everyone on the platform. He was a war photographer who became addicted to watching mass death from a safe distance. His subconscious rendered that compulsion as an environment. Narihisago's own well, when Hondomachi enters it, is a mathematical lightning storm, a flat plane covered in numbered tiles. The lightning has struck every tile exactly once, never the same location twice, artificial, compulsive, organized, and at the center, a dead girl, same height, same age as Muku. The machine is not reading killers. It is reading grief. Whatever psychological state a person brings into the system, that is what the system builds with. Narihisago's well is not the product of a drive to kill. It is what happens when you take a man who lost everything, hand him a purpose, and let him live inside that purpose for years. He tells Momoki that forgetting who he is not a problem. It is part of the fun. Because when he opens his eyes in the well, the first thing he sees is Kairo's face. Hey, sorry for the interruption, but most of you watching this aren't subscribed, so please subscribe if you aren't. Also, if you want to support this content, use the new YouTube feature. It's on mobile only, called the hype button. You can hype the video up to 3 times if this video is still less than 7 days old. Other than that, if you can share this, that would help us out a lot too. Thank you. Momoki has been a presence in Narihisago's life since before any of this. They were colleagues. They are still, in some functional sense, friends. He visits Narihisago after dives. He pushes him to do better. He believes in the Kura's mission and in Narihisago's ability to serve it. He also knows what the machine runs on. Kiki Asukai has never had a private thought in her life. That is not a metaphor. She has uncontrollable psychic abilities. She broadcasts her internal states to anyone nearby, and serial killers can enter her dreams while she sleeps and kill her there as many times as they want. The only thing I do know is that I have never had a secret on my own. She was 14 when Katsuyama first came for her, the same man who killed Muku. Narihisago saved her by accident, arriving at Katsuyama's house before the police and shooting him. Months later, Kiki was kidnapped by the Kura's founder and the machine's inventor. She was installed as the Mizuhanome's core. Her face was taken from her at 14 and given to Kairu, the dead girl in every well, the constant emotional hook that motivates every brilliant detective to keep investigating. Her psychic suffering generates the wells. Her body is the machine. Momoki knows this. He promised her she would be freed one day. He kept operating the Mizuhanome. This is the position of every administrator in every institution that runs on something it cannot publicly justify. Not a villain, not indifferent. A person who believes the mission is real, the results are real, and the cost is not acceptable exactly, but necessary. Who tells himself that the alternative is worse? Who promises the person bearing the cost that it will not always be this way? The Patriot Act passed because a grieving nation trusted people in that position. The law was instituted in haste, in fear, without broad public debate. It was adopted at the height of national emotional response. The grief was genuine. The people arguing for the tools genuinely believed they would prevent more deaths. Feingold, the one senator who voted no, was not saying the deaths did not matter. He was saying you cannot build permanent infrastructure out of emergency conditions without it becoming permanent regardless of the emergency. Nobody wanted to hear that in October 2001. The Kura's secrecy is structural, not incidental. Hontomachi narrates it plainly at the end of the series. The truth of the Mizuhanome was once again concealed. The true nature of the case, the victims, and the existence of comatose personnel who had yet to wake up, none of it would be made public. All personnel knew that was the way the Kura organization worked. The system requires secrecy to function, not because it is hiding evil, but because public knowledge would mean public accountability, and accountability would mean answering questions the institution was not built to survive. Hayaseura founded the Kura. He designed the system, ran it as chief, and earned the loyalty of everyone beneath him. He had a formal, open manner with his subordinates. He accepted suggestions. He appeared to genuinely believe in the law. He was also John Walker, a serial killer who had been manipulating Kiki Asukai's psychic abilities for years to create other serial killers. The killers the Kura caught were killers he made. He was responsible indirectly for at least 44 deaths. He never personally killed anyone. He designed the conditions and let other people act. His confession when it comes: I've never in my life actually killed anyone. His justification is that the Kura works. The institution will outlast his crimes. The success justifies the method. This is not a twist about corruption. It is the architecture made explicit. A security institution that needs criminals to function will eventually produce them if none are available. Not through conspiracy, through incentive. Hayaseura built a system that required a constant supply of serial killers, and he was too committed to the mission to let that supply run short. In the decade after the Patriot Act's passage, the sneak and peek provision, which allowed law enforcement to search citizens' homes without notification, was used in terrorism cases roughly 1% of the time. The other 99% were drug investigations, fraud cases, and domestic crimes. The architecture built for one emergency was immediately applied to whatever was available. The crisis justifies the tools. The tools find new crises. Hayaseura, exposed, shoots himself and enters his own ID well, intending to live forever inside it as the brilliant detective Yuraido. He does not escape the machine. He retreats into the only world that still makes sense to him, the world he built. The Kura catches real killers. Fukuda was real. Fuyukawa was real. Oh no. Kazuda Inami caught, stopped, removed. The machine produces results. This is not in dispute. Psychopaths, if you have seen the channel's video on it, makes a cleaner argument. Sybil controls through comfort. Citizens outsource their moral reasoning, stop thinking, and the system calculates for them. The critique has edges you can hold on to. It produces passivity. It punishes potential. It operates on premises that can be interrogated. The Kora operates differently. Nobody inside it is passive. Nobody stopped thinking. Narihisago is arguably the most mentally active character in any show this channel has covered, constantly analyzing, constantly present, always the sharpest person in whatever room he is in. The system did not make him passive. It gave him a reason to be sharp. Episodes 9 and 10 are where the argument becomes obvious. Narihisago enters Kiki Asukai's id well, a reconstruction of his own life in the days before Muku died. He retains his full memory, his family is alive, he works cases alongside Momoki, he is, in the only sense that still has meaning for him, okay? He lives there for almost 2 years. When Hondomachi finds him and tells him the date, the reconstruction starts to unravel. He calls Ayako one last time before the well collapses. Tells her his real body is in a world where she and Muku are gone. She asks if he is coming home. He tells her he will, not today. Then he chooses the real world, not because it is better, because there is a case, because Hondomachi is there and the well is falling apart and the mission is still active, because the Kora gave him a reason to come back. A system that converts grief into operational fuel, found a man whose grief was total, a man who, given the choice between the dream and the machine, chose the machine because the machine made the grief matter. That is not a flaw in the design. And the question the series leaves open, never quite addresses, certainly never resolves if the system is built from your pain and it catches real killers and you were given the choice and you chose it, what exactly are you owed? At the end of the series, Kokufu becomes acting chief. Momoki continues as well-side director. Kiki Asukai returns to the Mizuhanome. Narihisago and Hondomachi prepare for the next dive. No one is held accountable in any consequential sense. Hayaseura is dead, but the institution he built is intact and operational. The system survived its own architect's exposure because it was never dependent on him being good, only on the mission continuing. The post-September 11th surveillance infrastructure is largely still in place. The Patriot Act has been renewed across multiple administrations. Programs revealed by Snowden in 2013 have been partially curtailed and mostly continued in modified form. The people who built these systems were responding to something real. The people who maintained them believed in the mission. And the question of whether effectiveness is the same thing as justification is still, 2 decades later, not one that any institution has been required to answer. What ID Invaded understands, what it builds into the machine at the level of character rather than plot, is that the hardest systems to dismantle are not the ones that oppress you. They are the ones that save you something. The ones where the person inside looks at the cost and decides freely that the work is worth it. Where the grief and the purpose are so thoroughly intertwined that removing the machine would mean losing the only thing that made the grief bearable. Narihisago goes back into the well. He forgets his name, he opens his eyes, and there she is. The same face, the same age, already dead. He has no idea who he is. He has no idea why he feels this particular pull towards solving her murder. He just knows it matters. He learns his name, Sakaido. The brilliant detective, the well side logs the dive, and the machine keeps running.